Okay, guys, after this great introduction, we have to be at the right level. You know, it's... Okay, let's try to wake up people after Spanish lunch to talk about the future of IoT and AI. Probably the first thing that we have to do is to explain a little bit what is IoT and AI, okay? But the first thing that we should do is to introduce our panelists today with us. And I will ask you for just in 1 minute, 2 minutes to introduce yourself, to let us know what you are doing in your day-to-day basis. And most important for me, and probably for the audience, is what makes you passionate about the topics that we are talking today, about the IoT of the IA. So first, Eiso? Eiso, okay.
I'm not on. Let's see if they've connected me. Maybe start on that side. I'm on. So my name is Eiso Kant. I'm the co-founder of Tyba. And at Tyba, we work on a product named Sourced. What we actually do is we analyze over 15 million code repositories that are published online by developers. It's about 98% of the source code you can find on the internet to understand how good a developer is for a certain type of job. And so AI for us is incredibly important, specifically the area of deep learning, because it's an area that allows us to actually understand a lot better who developers are based on code that they've written.
Okay, great.
Hello, Ángel.
Next one, Juan from Telefónica, a big company, but I think that you also do a lot of things in this space.
So we are a small team within Telefonica working to bring products and services to our footprint, especially disruptive products and services that startups or the major technology companies are designing. And in particular, we are especially focused in IoT, which is one of the main growth opportunities for companies like Telefonica, and in artificial intelligence to analyze the huge amount of data that we generate in our operations day to day. Thank you very much.
Okay, so next one.
So it's working? Hi. So thank you very much. So my name is Ruiz. I work for a company called Taiger, based here in Madrid. The aim of the company is to manage structured and unstructured data to transform it into useful knowledge. And we are specialized in artificial intelligence, where we combine different technologies from the semantic web field, natural language understanding, machine learning, and information retrieval. And the company, the origin was a spin-off of the Semantic Technology Institute. So that's the reason why we are so close to artificial intelligence technologies.
Julio.
My name is Julio Prada from Inbenta, and we develop a software that allows a machine to understand human. This is a very concrete part from IA. It's what we call natural language processing. That's what we do.
Okay. I asked about something that passionates you about what you are doing on IoT and AI. I don't know if nothing passionated you, but if so, let us know. I mean, I think it's important for people why you are involved in these kind of things. So next one, maybe there is.
Hi, hello, can you hear me? Okay, so hi, Alex Romero, I'm the CEO and founder of Alto Analytics. It's a big data company. We work a lot in the space of big data infrastructure on one side, and also in artificial intelligence. We have some elements of artificial intelligence in our software. And we are passionate about actually bringing together different profiles to work in that space. So we have in our team, obviously, mathematicians and developers, but we have also people from very different backgrounds, sociology, psychology, something that is very important to make sense of the data and really feedback the programmers into what's really needed in terms of the outcome of the software. So yeah, that's us.
Okay, and last but not least.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Alexander Grendel from Interoute. We are a hosting infrastructure service provider and a global network provider. We facilitate companies that want to interconnect all their devices globally, process the data centrally in data centers to make sense out of the data. So we are primarily interested in consolidating the data, making sure that companies can securely work and process the data in a specific country. We have various zones across the world where you can do that. in a secure manner.
Okay, good. So we have different profiles here. We have startups, we have big corporations, we have people working with data, with analytics, with IoT. Probably a little bit to talk a little bit about IoT. I think Internet of Things. Probably most of you are familiar with the term. Internet of Things means that a lot of things, devices, wearables are going to be connected. And going to be connected and going to generate huge amount of data. And we have to do something with this data. And probably it's where the value of the IoT is going to come from, right? And applying artificial intelligence to this data probably is one of the challenges that the IoT technology is going to have in the short future. So probably my first question to some of the people here is to help us or let us your opinion about the coming challenge for IoT, for instance. Juan.
Yeah, thank you, Ángel. So for me, the first question is what makes me excited about IoT and artificial intelligence bring together. For me, it's about changing my life in the sense of expending better my time and my money than we actually do. I'm thinking about traffic, I'm thinking about the way the garbage is collected in cities, I'm thinking about the way I manage my home, etc. I think that the technology is already here to make this kind of day-to-day activities much more smart and much more easier for people like us. So I really embrace and hope that this happens faster than it is happening, and it brings this kind of disruption faster to our homes. And in terms of definition, I want to approach the definition from two different perspectives. One is how I will define this to my mother, which is very, very difficult because IoT is a concept that most of you know because you read a lot of stuff from the internet and most of you are experts on this field. But how do you define IoT to your mother? And I would say it's anything that gets some kind of connection to the internet without human interaction. That means anything that doesn't have to be with your smartphone directly or with anything that my mother can control directly. That means that these devices can make decisions by themselves or get actionated or receive information without me to interact with them. And then I would say, how do I define this to a millennial, which is the opposite? Yeah. And I would say, Internet of Things is the extension of your smartphone applications into the physical world. It's the way of interacting with the physical world from your smartphone application. This is the way I will define it.
Okay. Any further comment about IoT specific in the panel?
Well, I think that IoT means that we are plugging things to the internet. So to me, it's like we need some clear path for adoption. If there is no adoption on users, there is no Internet of Things. Yeah. So it's not clear how many devices we will connect in the next coming years. So there are some analysts that are talking about 20 billion of things connect to the internet. And there are other analysts, like they are saying, they are talking about twice. So I think it's depend on users, on humans, and the way we live is if we connect things to the internet, and all the rest is, we can talk about technology, processing big data. If it's helpful for my mother, it's helpful for me. But nowadays, we are not yet attaching things to the internet. That's what's happening. So I think it's still a little bit, it's early for early adoption for that thing.
Yeah. I think that it also takes a little more time for devices to get smart enough to really be able to run multiple applications. If you want to have, am I live? Okay. You need to have enough computing power in a device, cheap enough to be able to process multiple types of applications on it. And it's a question of how the ecosystem is going to look in a few years. Are you going to be able, as a person, to interface with all your devices in your home? Is there going to be an open platform for that? I think that's something that could be really interesting to have a look at as a startup. I mean, are companies, enterprises delivering devices that are connected to the internet, going to manage that as in a walled garden concept like Apple, iOS or Android has, where you can supply apps on top of that and be able to interface that? Or is there going to be a sort of an open source framework, an API, a common API that will sort of bind all these different devices together? Because it's a scattered place with all these manufacturers providing devices that need to interoperate somehow.
Yeah, in fact, the challenge right now in the IoT space is people is starting to make a question how it works, right? I mean, we have been talking about IoT in the last 2 years, 3 years, but now people want to see tangible results, right? We know that cities are going to be smart, they are going to have access to a lot of data, a lot of information, but what's the benefit from this? Or doctors in the health space, they are going to have access to a lot of information from the patients, from the wearables, from the pacemakers, the industry. They are going to track all the equipments, all the machines, but what's the benefit behind that? Because what is true is that we are going to have a huge amount of data, and probably is AI a good solution for that. I just want to mention that recently Wired, probably one of the most well-known and respectable magazine, put down an article saying IoT won't work without AI, will not work without AI, because the amount of data that these devices, this is what the article was saying, is going to be so huge that it's impossible for humans to manage the data. So we need technologies, we need ways to take the best from this amount, huge amount of data in order to get some benefits for the people. So probably now, the guys from the AI, you have to help us to understand how you guys are going to help the IoT guys to make this happen and probably to make this work.
So from our side, I think it's important to understand that these devices are dumb sensors. It's a sensor that measures temperature. It's a sensor that measures if something is moving. At the end of the day, it is just very dumb hardware. And this hardware is able to collect a lot of data. It's able to collect the temperature in my house. It's able to collect if smoke alarm is going off. It's able to collect data on how my pacemaker is working. But the reality is a whole bunch of information or data from dumb sensors has never made us smarter as a society. What's made us smarter as a society is a group of people who decided to do something with that information. And we're very passionate about this ourselves because the people who are most directly able to use this data and turn it into something that's useful, being useful something that I can understand on my phone what's going on back in my house, or being able to my doctor to understand what's going on my pacemaker, are the software developers themselves and the people who build companies around them. So in our opinion, there's a lot of different techniques and technologies that allow you to make sense of data. I think there's a lot of definitions on artificial intelligence, and I guess even along the people here, we share different ones.
Let's try to get two or three.
I'll start with sharing mine. I'd love to hear everyone else's. So artificial intelligence is usually defined in two areas. You have this general of artificial intelligence, which is, it's going to take over the world. It's going to be smarter than humans, and we're quite far away from that. We have something called narrow AI, which is essentially artificial intelligence built to solve specific problems. And probably the most advanced techniques today that are out there are something called deep learning. At the core of this is smart mathematics with a lot of computing power behind it that allows us to understand and make sense of data, allows us to understand and train machines what large amounts of information mean. And I think this specific area is going to do a lot in the short term.
Okay.
So I want to make one quick comment. So before coming, I was checking how long has been the concept of Internet of Things around, and I found a source that said that the first time it popped up was in a United Nations report in 2005. I say this because, artificial intelligence was coined in the 50s. I went to the university, we studied neural networks. It has been around for a long time. I have the impression that artificial intelligence is anything that it cannot be done yet, right? Because if it can be done, then it's not artificial intelligence. So it's like stuff in the movies. But I think the key challenge that Internet of Things is facing is to prove where the value is, where the business is. And I don't know if it will be successful or not. I believe it will be successful. But if there is any value, I'm sure that one of the places to find it will be data. And there is where artificial intelligence can make the difference. Because Internet of Things, from a data perspective, we believe is going to have 3 types of challenges. First one is going to be the fragmentation. There will be, as you were saying, multiple sensors. But actually, I have a Fitbit here, which is one sensor, but I have a different brand for the temperature at home. If making sense of all of that, taking a holistic view on that data, it's going to be relevant to derive patterns or to derive conclusions. So fragmentation is an issue. The second one is analyzing that data. We were talking a lot about data and information. We believe there are different levels. So you have data, then you have information, then you have knowledge, then you have understanding, and then you have wisdom. So really crawl that ladder, it's not easy, and we will need very powerful software. And the final thing is the third challenge for Internet of Things is going to be to secure that data. So, I don't mind if someone hacks my Fitbit and they discover that I'm 92 kilos, right? But when it comes, for example, to some blood analysis or stuff like that, that's going to be very sensitive, very tricky. So, overall, I think my reflection on this is it's very interesting to see how some concept from the 50s is getting together with some concept from the early 2000s, so that's one thing. And then the challenges of Internet of Things, I think they're going to be a lot around data.
Carlos.
So I think it's clear that there are synergies between smart data, IoT, and artificial intelligence. But it's true that the more data we have, the more intelligent systems or algorithms we need to deploy in our commercial products. And it's true that artificial intelligence has a long history from 50s. But nowadays we have different challenges. And here is where deep learning or new methods can play a key role. And I think this kind of technology is taking a lot of importance in the system, in the different smart cities and IoT systems that we have nowadays. And I think the challenge in that sense is to apply these new methods to the new scenario we have, where the amount of data we have is quite different to the amount of data we have in the 50s, where the system and algorithms we have were focusing on a different kind of situation and problems, right? So more or less the term was there, but the new challenges we have are new, and the new systems and new algorithms are trying to address these problems.
So probably there is some challenge related with the artificial intelligence evolution, because at the end, well, the IoT guys, we might say, well, we already have the sensors, we are generating the data, I can imagine some business models, right? You can imagine the cities asking for some specific relevant data to take decisions, of the doctors asking for some specific decisions to make predictions about the health of the patients. So what's missing in the AI in order to be able to be there?
I think there is a very important point is that artificial intelligence should have as the main milestone the natural language processing. Why? Because we are talking about devices bringing information, huge information, documents, and we need to take into account that there are a lot of languages in the world. So it's impossible to understand Internet of Things. Everybody's plugged in the Internet with devices, and we are sharing information and documents and things like, clinical histories and whatever in different languages. So the first step, the first milestone for artificial intelligence is understand the information. And this is a different intelligence from our investments nowadays. We are really strong in mathematical intelligence. We got companies like Intel, they develop ultra-fast processors. But we are still doing the first steps in another kind of intelligence. It's called language intelligence. Yeah? This is, I think, Howard Gardner defines 8 kinds of intelligence. So, yes, I agree totally with that opinion from why. there's Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. But the first milestone is natural language. We need to understand what we got, as information to know what to do. And the problem is there are a lot of languages in the world. So there is not one unique language.
And a lot of interpretations for the same language. So
Yeah.
words are not, words can have different meanings to people. So it's
What I mean is,
hard
a CPU can understand zeros and ones, but we don't got a CPU that can understand all the language of the world. So this is the first step. It's like a CPU oriented to process languages. I think this is the first step. We are using, mathematical strength to process language. So I think this is the first milestone for AI.
I'll take maybe to go back to the question when you said, what is stopping artificial intelligence to actually, link together with Internet of Things? I actually don't think anything is stopping it, and I think a lot of work is being done in the space. Because at the end of the day, if you're running an Internet of Things company, doesn't matter if it's your Fitbit on your wrist or it's in the space of healthcare, in the space on home automation, if you cannot give valuable insights back to the users, the people who've paid to have the Fitbit around your wrist, who tell you you should walk more or you're going to get fatter, or you should do X, Y, or Z, you're not going to have an addressable market. And to be able to actually get those insights back, you need to understand the data. And there's only several technologies out there. And today what we're seeing is that techniques like deep learning or techniques that are classified under artificial intelligence are making the most progress. When you speak to Siri or you speak to Google now today, it uses artificial intelligence to understand what you said. 5 years ago, it used other types of statistical modeling.
Okay, it seems that we have different opinions, which is very good for a panel. And I'm going to try to push a little bit for that. I mean, there's people that are saying that artificial intelligence is already good enough already to take the data that IoT is generating and provide enough value to the people. But there are people that still more techniques have to come.
Well, I think there are like two things. I think you described it very well. So there is this idea that we all have about artificial intelligence, right? And let's be clear. We are talking about artificial human intelligence, right? So we're talking about replicating the brain. And, to be honest, the brain is one of the organs that it's really unknown. It's the next frontier. How can you replicate something we don't fully understand? So I mean, this overall idea of being able to replace the brain, I think it's, a little bit of science fiction for the moment. However, this second level in which we have specific problems in which now we're able to capture data and then we can put it through different algorithms to really either classify the information or predict or recommend. Those are the challenges that it makes sense at the moment and is where the industry is advancing. But it's not only about artificial intelligence from a pure coding perspective. To enable artificial intelligence, for example, you need to have the infrastructure behind. And the price needs to be low enough for people to get in. So the cloud needs to be in place, non-SQL storage, Spark, stuff like that needs to be in place, which is not directly related to artificial intelligence, but it's one of the enablers. So I think it's kind of a little bit complex if you look into the two levels, no? The ideal idea, or the specific issues that need to be solved.
Yeah, I fully agree with that idea. So basically, I think there are some systems and algorithms that can be deployed or applied in current domains, and you can get wonderful results, and you can address your markets, and you can make profit out of it. But however, there's still a long way to go before applying artificial intelligence in a wild way to any kind of problem. So depending on the domain, depending on the problem you want to address, you can apply different techniques. Some of them are quite developed, some others are still ongoing. Okay.
Maybe it's going to be helpful to provide a little bit more detail about what artificial intelligence is, right? Because it's probably more than two words. I mean, you are the expert of that. It's machine learning, but as far as I understand, machines are learning by themselves. It's natural processing language. The machines are able to understand the language. What else?
So I think it's very much from the university, but I like this idea that artificial intelligence is the design, the creation of intelligent agents. And an agent, at the end of the day, is a system that is aware, it processes that information and it takes decisions that are, oriented to be successful. And, that's a very generic idea, but if it's either classifying information or if it's, doing a recommendation, it fits. And the issue with artificial intelligence, the one that we see, is that it's multidisciplinary. So you need linguistics, you were mentioning that, you need programmers, but not only developers, you need architects because it's a very complex, storage systems. You need sociologists to validate that the results that are being provided, maybe they make sense in a given context. So, but I will define it like that, intelligent agents.
Probably a question for you, Juan. I mean, because I think it's important to try to understand what are the real benefits for people, right? I mean, they can understand they can understand a driverless car, right? A car that is driving by itself. I spoke recently with a German car manufacturer that was telling me that in the last 6 months, we have been racing a pilot car with a driverless car. They were saying that, and recently, the driverless car is starting to win. So, and probably this is at the end is a combination of plenty of sensors in the car, a lot of information, but at the end artificial intelligence, right? This is one clear application that is coming forward. I'm putting together the two things. In a big corporation such as Telefonica, what are the things that you see coming next, or the first thing?
I think overall this question of artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, I want to take a step back and be closer to the customer, to the end user. And I think you have mentioned before, the main issue is what is the use case? What is the problem that we are trying to solve? And this is the main problem that all the startups, and you know that very well because you run one of the most successful incubators in IoT. The main pain is when the IoT founder, the startup, begins to work on an idea, they need to focus on hardware. They need to learn about communications. They need to have a good guy that is able to do the platform. And then they need to do artificial intelligence and create a good application for the customer. I think there are a lot of barriers in each part of the value chain that is preventing IoT companies to put more focus on the customer problem, to try to solve the real pain, invest 90% of their time in solving a real pain, the real customer problem, because they are solving a lot of issues in the whole value chain. And most of these issues are caused in the hardware layer. It's extremely expensive still. Computing is not that cheap to put it everywhere. Communications, the same. The networks are not ready for this. We are building the networks of the future that are created for this kind of IoT customers, but they are not yet there. And if you go to the artificial intelligence, my experience with IoT companies is they try to build everything by themselves. Mm-hmm. So they don't focus on the customer algorithm, but they are building the whole system end to end. So they don't rely on guys like you to say, okay, this is already invented. This kind of processing power is already invented. I'm going to take it, plug it in my solution, and just focus on solving this part of the algorithm that is the pain of my customer. And I think that's really what is preventing this from happening. I think it's very aligned with what you said, which is there is a lot of computing and artificial intelligence ready to most of the solutions of the IoT world. I think 90% is there. Not for complex systems, for like self-driving car, drone delivery, smart cities. I think we need to still go a little bit further in artificial intelligence, but most of what is already done is enough for IoT. I think the main question is how do we bring artificial intelligence power to IoT companies so they don't need to have the best guy in artificial intelligence in their companies and they can rely on other companies like you guys. I think that's the real pain in the market.
Well, it's a good question for our panelists, right? Why we can bring this artificial intelligence to the IoT guys to help?
I think I have an opinion on this, and my opinion is the following, is that one of the areas you mentioned is today the technology is not yet so accessible that anyone out of the box can use it, right? They can apply it to their problem. And if you go and look at all the companies that are successful in building driverless cars or extremely good voice recognition technology or these kind of things, and you look at the people who are working there, they're coming out of 4, 6, 8-year PhD programs from about 4 universities around the world. And that is essentially the state of things today. So as you're trying to get more people access to this, we need more people. But the reality is we're not going to have in the next 2-3 years 10 times as many data scientists are in the market today that know these things. So I think one of the things that you're already seeing in the market is that there's platforms being built. Google is doing it, Amazon is doing it, and actually much more smaller startups that are doing it sometimes even better by actually making it a platform where you give access to your data and they give you back insights. And I think this is one area specifically that I think will help accelerate things. But I think there's another thing that we're talking a lot about, the barriers and the things that are stopping things happening. And I guess I'm the optimist today on the panel. Is you mentioned the term Internet of Things was coined in 2005. I didn't know that. But I do know companies that were created far before 2005 who were putting sensors in real-life business applications, in oil pipelines, in cars, and sending data back. And so I think a big part of the IoT challenge is, yes, getting it to consumers, getting it to impact my daily life. But in reality, it's already impacting tons and thousands of companies around the world. We just didn't call it IoT 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, we have a management platform for Internet of Things through a partner of ours that manages millions of machine-to-machine communications on our platform, and it's widely there. You're wearing a Fitbit, you're wearing an Apple Watch. I mean, those are devices that are connected. I'm from the Netherlands. We have sensors in our dikes measuring, moisture, temperature, everything to make sure that we don't drown, basically. And yeah, it's widely available across the world. It's just not visible to the general consumer. I think we're thinking about a lot as a consumer of products here. But in the enterprise, it's widely adopted.
Yeah. We're approaching the end of the panel. I think probably for people it's important from each of you to understand going forward, which is the application, service, or tool that you believe in the short future people can benefit to putting together this IoT and artificial intelligence technologies or platform. I understand that a lot of things to do, but as Eiso said, I mean, it's a lot of technologies already available, a lot of data already available. What do you see going forward, these real tangible applications for us in our daily life that you see we can benefit from? Let's start.
So I think the combination of these two elements will find areas of unlocking value. I think one huge area that needs to be unlocked is healthcare. I think, in the world, especially in our part of the world, there is an aging population. There is a huge part of the budgets of any country's budget that is going in Europe to healthcare. And I think that there is a lot of value to be unlocked there in the combination of smart sensors, remote access to information of individuals. And I believe that there is probably, it's not going to be fast, but it's going to be an area where there's going to be a lot of work and there's going to be a meaningful impact for the individuals.
And when you are talking about health, you're talking about predictions about the health of the people in order to avoid issues.
Just think about chronic diseases. So
Okay.
if you are older, you have diabetes. You can take a sample of your blood at home, but you need to communicate those results. Maybe you cannot see very well how that information gets into your doctor to make an assessment of the situation. So only there is a huge opportunity to reduce costs, for example. Things like that.
What else?
Yeah, something interesting, this is a big field in artificial intelligence, is how our system interact with users. And this is important, this is related to what he said. I think it's important that our systems offer much more natural ways to interact with users. That's important because the amount of data we have is huge. The knowledge or the insights we can get from this data can be wonderful, but if we don't provide ways to interact with users, to tell them what we found in our data, in our analysis, it won't work, basically. We won't be able to tell them what we predicted, what we saw in the data. And I think this is related to language understanding. I think it's important that we offer much more natural ways, understanding what the user wants in real time, offering answer to the question they have, and analyzing the data, sometimes in real time, sometimes in pseudo real time, but at least in a much more closer way than just giving a number. They're just saying, okay, you are fat, you need to do some export, right? And I think that's quite important nowadays.
Any other example about?
I love Julio's approach to language. I think it will be amazing that my mother could write, now that she has learned to use WhatsApp, that she could write a WhatsApp message to her AC system and say, I'm going to arrive home at 8 in her natural language. And then the heater or the AC system begins to work.
What about cars? I mean, because someone told me the other day that our kids, my daughter, will not have a drive license, meaning that we are going to be surrounded by driverless car. I mean, my daughter is 8, so there are 10 years ago. How do you see that? I mean, we have at least the artificial intelligent enough technology in order to be able to take care of the cars. I'm not going to be the one trying, but.
So I think building these systems and building artificial intelligence and building driverless cars needs to have a strong motivation behind it. And building driverless cars probably has one of the strongest motivations behind it. Over 1 million people every year around the world die in car accidents. And we already have technology today, if you look at what Google is doing or some of the car manufacturers, that is solving that. So it shouldn't be a question of if or when. It should be something that within the next 10, 15 years we'll start seeing on the streets. But to go back to the rationale, the rational number side behind it, the average lifespan that a car stays on the road is over 50 years. We have billions of cars around the world, and an increasing number of such are being bought. So it's going to be a long period of time till we actually have fully driver cars, regular cars, out of the system and all driverless cars. I think we're looking at a period of 70, 80 to 100 years, not because we don't want it, but because there's so much legacy still out there.
So I guess that they have to pay my daughter driver license costs. Any opinion about the cars, or just before to finish?
Just one minor comment. I think we didn't touch on this. I just was waiting in case it popped up, but I think there is an ethical. Can you hear me? Yeah. There is an ethical angle also to artificial intelligence. You were talking about driving cars, but what about drones? And what about drones that will be able, and they already operate weapons? So, all this software that is being created also, will be used in many different ways. And there's also, an ethical element that I think the industry will face that maybe was not that clear before, but it will be very clear very soon. And I'm sure that there will be panels discussing those implications too soon.
Okay, so driverless cars, drones, smart homes, smart cities, plenty of exciting things coming forward. So we really hope that you learn a little bit more about IoT and AI in these 45 minutes. I just wanted to ask for a big applause to the panelists today.